results curve is about how our results change with time when we are working on a task. This is the results axis and this is the time axis right here. And as I start to work, I start to get results and then more results and then more results. At some point, this is going to level off and then it will start to diminish. Why does this happen? Because maybe I'm exhausted and not productive anymore. Or maybe I did what I could and now need someone else to do their part. Or maybe I completed the task and there is no point in continuing. This would be the happy ending. This is all good in theory, but let's examine what happens in reality. So a few minutes after I start to work on the task, like let's say I'm right here, what happens is I get interrupted. Email beeps and I can't resist the temptation, or Joe stops by because he needed a break, or maybe just my mind wanders and for some reason I start to think about that YouTube video and now I'm on the internet searching for it. Now the question is, what happens to our results when I get interrupted? What happens to my results? They go down to 0. And then a few minutes later when I start again, am I going to start at the same level? Probably not. So I'm going to start somewhere here and then I start to make some progress, and as you may have suspected, I get interrupted again. This time it could be an IM message, or maybe my boss calls me and asks for this report, or maybe my mind wanders worrying about this other project, and then my results go down to 0 again. And this happens again and again. And what am I describing here? This is our life. This is pretty much our life in the information overload. Let's stop and let's try to examine the implications of this, of the way we work in this information overload. So let's look at this from a distance. If we look at the actual results which we are getting here and compare this to the potential results that we could be getting if we were to stick to our task, you can see quickly that these little tiny bits of results are probably 10 to 20% of the potential results. Let me tell you something here that I think is pretty important, and that is great accomplishments don't come from working a few minutes here and a few minutes there. Great accomplishments come from focused and purposeful work. They come from reaching this area right here, which we call the accomplishment zone. In addition to that, here in these little pockets of tiny bits of results, not only we're missing the more important accomplishments, but life is hectic, it's stressful, it's very unfulfilled. We're constantly running from one thing to the next, and then at the end of the day still feeling like we haven't accomplished anything. On the other hand, life in this area here, when we reach the accomplishment zone, is much more satisfying. This is where we engage in strategic thinking, in creative problem solving. This is where we see the relationships between the different elements of the problem that we're working on, and we get some more meaningful insights. This is exciting. This can become even addictive once we discover it. The bottom line is we need to stay focused long enough to get to the accomplishment zone. And this brings a really good question which comes up in most of our workshops. So how long is long enough? How long does this need to be? Well, this depends on the task. So there are some tasks that maybe 15 minutes is enough. There are other tasks that require 30 minutes and other tasks that may even require hours to get there. I'm going to suggest 40 minutes. So I'm going to suggest 40 minutes as a default guideline. The first practice that I want to encourage you to try as part of this effort is to stay focused long enough to reach the accomplishment zone. This is not the end. Actually, there is a lot more to this. So now the question is, if I go back to this results curve, after the 40 minutes, then what I'm going to suggest is that you stop right here and you switch to what I'm going to call a collaborative session. So this is where we check email, instant messaging, phone calls, give people what they need from us, ask for what we want, have all these live conversations, and maybe even check that YouTube video or Facebook or Twitter or whatever else, and then come back to a focused session. and the cycle continues. We're going to call this area right here, we're going to call it the collaboration zone. And actually, the collaboration zone is just as important as the accomplishment zone. Why is this? Because today we cannot accomplish great things by ourselves. We are so much more interdependent than ever before. And therefore, it's likely that in this area right here, we're going to accomplish great results as well. Different kind of results, but great results. So that brings us to the second practice that I really want you to take with you today. And that is practice number 2, which is alternating between focus and collaborative sessions.